I think as everybody in the industry would agree, the industry has changed so much with emissions, automated manual transmissions. We're moving into a big change with electric vehicles and some of this other technology that's coming down the pipeline. And preventative maintenance has to change with it. Preventative maintenance is one of those things that it has to adapt.
Hi, everyone. This is Tom Wiers, and today I'm with Kurt Dunn. Kurt is a senior fleet technical advisor for Pitt, Ohio, and Kurt and I met a couple months ago down at TMC in Orlando. We sat on a panel together, had a great conversation. I really liked what he had to say, and I could sense his passion for his position and the people he works with. So I thought it'd be a great person to have Kurt on the podcast today. So, Kurt, why don't you do just a quick intro and the senior fleet technical advisor, and what is that role at Pitt, Ohio, and how long have you been doing that?
Thanks, Tom, and thanks for having me. So I've been at Pitt, Ohio 15 years. I've been the senior fleet technical advisor for 1 year, and I was the fleet technical advisor for 3 years before that. So have about 4 years of experience in the technical advisor role. It is somewhat of a unique role. As a technical advisor, we were brought in due to all the technical advancements. I think we all are very familiar with all the technology that's on current trucks. So we were brought in to support the mechanics. We have a day-to-day troubleshooting support. So we're our own internal tech support.
Got it.
So if we have an issue, and I know, Tom, with a dealership, you guys are very familiar with the technical support thing.
Sure.
We have our own internal technical support that we support our technicians, kind of first level. And we also do that. While we do that, we also do a training platform with that. So kind of a position that's always moving. Everybody asks what I do, and I'm like, well, it depends on the day. It's always moving. It's definitely a moving target, depending on the day, but just really diving into everything technology.
Yeah, that's great, because as a fleet operation yourself, I mean, you're seeing this. We work with the OEM, obviously, and we're getting information secondhand, thirdhand sometimes, but you're living on a day-to-day basis. I mean, usually if there's something you guys can't solve, then you end up at an OEM dealership, and then we end up talking to the factory or something. But you're seeing it firsthand, so that's great. How long has that system been in place? This platform you just described at Pitt, Ohio.
So it's been in place for about 7 years now.
Okay.
It ran for about 3 years, and then the person who had the position before me moved on, and I moved into that position. So we've been doing it for about 7 years. Almost all of a good majority of the emissions, when the emissions were brought on in 2007 and then got a lot worse in 10, brought on to kind of work through those challenges.
Yeah. One of my observations between a dealer meeting at Navistar and then TMC is the amount of change that we're going to be seeing in the next 10 years. So I'm really going to want to hone in on, all the things that you've learned with this platform over the last 7 years, but then also how you see it, impacting your operations going forward. But a little more about Pitt, Ohio, LTL carrier, right? 23 locations. You want to tell us a little more about the business and the size of the fleet and the type of equipment you're operating?
Absolutely. 43-year-old company, privately owned company, big on sustainability, big on employees. It's a company that really looks forward. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm going to talk as some of our practices with preventative maintenance, but really forward-looking company.
What part of the country are you guys currently servicing?
We're based, so our corporate building's based out of Pittsburgh, PA, and we service Maine to North Carolina out to about Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good sized footprint, and growing. I'm assuming, right? Either growing or dying. So
yeah, yep,
right, exactly. And do you have a particular part of the country, Kurt, that you deal with, or are you all over?
So as senior technical advisor, I work with all of the different entities. We have 5 different entities under the Pitt Ohio Transportation Group umbrella. I do work with all the entities. We do have a technical advisor who also works with me. and he only oversees a couple of the fleets, only about 2 of the fleets under that umbrella.
And I think it's worth noting, Kurt said right before we jumped on the podcast that earlier today he was out working in the shop environment, had greasy pants and shirt on, so he spiffed up really nice for us, and they even put up the happy sign in the background so we all remember how happy we should be when we work in the transportation and related services areas. So appreciate that. Tell us about preventive maintenance and what you guys are doing today that maybe you weren't even doing a couple of years ago. What have you learned over the last few years as it relates to preventative maintenance, and how is that impacting your operation?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as everybody in the industry would agree, the industry has changed so much with emissions, automated manual transmissions. We're moving into a big change with electric vehicles and some of this other technology that's coming down the pipeline. And preventative maintenance has to change with it. Preventative maintenance is one of those things that it has to adapt. We have to maintain things different. We recently just changed our preventative maintenance program, and we changed it to be more efficient in a couple different ways. We changed it to be more efficient for the equipment. We changed it to be more efficient for the shops. So we really streamlined our process, and something we're really proud about. We actually did it in a way that we were able to make it more efficient for the shops, but also increase the maintenance in parts that needed more maintenance. So we use data to drive our maintenance program, our preventative maintenance program, and really, the areas that we were seeing, maybe failures prematurely, we were able to increase the maintenance on those areas and maybe pull back on areas where we didn't see many failures and we felt like we were over maintaining that part. So with all the different challenges we faced, the shortages, the labor, the part shortages, we were able to maximize our PM program and actually get a better PM program while being more efficient at the shop level.
Are you doing PMs today off of time or mileage or fuel consumption, or what have you found in that area? We
do all of our PMs off of mileage.
Okay. I'm seeing more fleets, and some of the folks at Navistar are talking about using fuel consumption, which I think is quite interesting, especially in long haul application. But I'm not so sure, just because I don't have the experience to understand, some of those other like lift gates or other parts of the equipment that are necessary when you're at a customer's location or getting freight or whatever they make. How are those continuing to get maintained, even though the intervals might be stretching out 40, 50, 60,000 miles? So that's pretty interesting stuff. And then do you have a particular telematics provider or system that you use, and are you using that data in order to help drive these decisions as well?
We use the mileage reading from our telematics data, and it integrates into our maintenance software. And we use as it integrates in our maintenance software, we have all the schedules kind of predetermined in there. And while we're talking schedules, it's important. All of our schedules are created through work with our OEM partners. So it was something there. It was a 6-8 month process for us to go through and working with our OEMs to really make sure that using that partnership to really make sure that the schedule we picked was going to be the right one for how our fleets run. Kind of going back to like what you're saying, international, and some of the OEMs are basing it off hours, fuel consumption.
Right.
And they've really dialed that down. It's really cool that they can dial it down to understanding about where that part is gonna be at the end of its life.
Yeah. Is there any particular one component or as you've gone through this journey that you've really as an example you could share that, but gosh, we never used to maintain this and we were having these issues and now it's part of our maintenance program, or has it been more generic than that?
I don't know if I would say a component, or I guess I could, because it's the after treatment system.
Okay.
And everybody in the industry knows that one. The after treatment system has added a lot to a preventative maintenance schedule. I think we have as many items preventative maintenance for the after treatment as we do for the rest of the truck, because it's that system that if something goes wrong, there's a little bit bigger consequences to pay than if you have something leaking oil or something. So on this latest schedule, we added a lot more than we had before with the after treatment. A lot more checks, a lot more kind of diving in and finding out, is that component good for another cycle, or do we need to go in and replace it now?
Are you getting more, I don't want to say preventative, but are you getting more the ability to to predict something or changing parts before they fail? Is that happening more often now than it was before?
It is. And we use a lot of data for that. So we even use our maintenance software, kind of the replacement cycles of that. So along with inspecting the parts or the system to see if there's a fault, we're also using our data from our service side, from our maintenance software, to see what the average replacement time of that item is. And if it's something where, at just a given mileage, this part has considered, failed, then we consider it to be like, okay, we want to make sure that part's probably replaced before then.
Right. So I think most fleets are looking for increased uptime and lower cost. Have you seen, have you been able to measure that? Have you been able to see the tangible results? Are you getting any kind of input from drivers, or how do you judge the success of your efforts?
We're actually in the process of that now. We have an intern this summer that's going to kind of prove it out for us. The system, the preventative maintenance system that we just put in place, is about 8 months old. 9 months old. So we feel like now we're starting to get enough data that we can start to prove it out between that 9 month and 1 year program. We are starting to prove it out with the intern working this summer. We did prove pretty early that our oil consumption dropped considerably with some of the new engine manufacturers pushing out to a little bit farther. We were a little bit behind the curve with that originally. So we were able to reduce our oil consumption and reduce our waste oil production, which was a big thing for us.
Yeah, that moves in the sustainability piece as well. Not to mention oil is a little more expensive today than it was a year or two ago. So that's all good for the bottom line as well. It's a win-win. Hey, thank you for joining in for this first conversation with Kurt Dunn. We've got more content coming up with him. But in the meantime, if you need assistance with your fleet maintenance, please go to Wiers.com, check out our offerings. We'd be happy to talk with you and help your truck stay on the road.